If you love boxing, you're gonna love this.
Well, hello and welcome to episode 6 of the BoxNation podcast. I'm your host, Dev Sani. Happy New Year to all the BoxNation podcast listeners. Can you still say that? It's the, what's the 8th we're recording it? It'll probably be the 10th by the time you're listening. Steve, can you still say that?
Of course you can say Happy New Year. We're not even only a couple hundred hours into the new year.
Okay. Well, Happy New Year to everyone, including my co-host here. Joining me once again, it's the one and only Steve Lillis. How are you?
I'm good, Dev. Happy New Year to you as well.
Good. Did you have a good break?
It was good. It was okay, mate, yeah.
Yeah.
Glad to be back now doing the podcast with you for a few more weeks, few more months and a few years.
Oh, wonderful words. Before we had our last podcast, you teased me, Steve. You said that on New Year's Eve, come midnight, you're going to treat yourself to a full fat Coke because you're such a naughty party animal. So tell me, did you go through with that?
No, I was more dangerous. I had a coffee.
You're a bad
I had
man.
a coffee and a bottle of water.
Wow, so you must have been up till, what, 12:05?
12:10, and I was up at 7 o'clock in the morning running, so there you go. That's the sort of boring life I lead away from the podcast studio, Dev.
We wouldn't have it any other way, Steve, because you save all your best for this studio. So today's show is full to the brim. We have got an exclusive chat with Peter Fury. He breaks his silence on his relationship with Tyson. We asked you some questions for Frank Warren to kick off the year, and well, my man here, Steve Lillis, has delivered the best ones to him. We hear from the king of Belfast, Paddy Barnes, who's been calling out a world champion, and undefeated flyweight Sonny Edwards has been calling out Paddy Barnes. So it's a jam-packed show to start the year. If you're sitting back, get comfy. If you're on a run, just keep on running because we're not going anywhere. Well, on the 28th of November 2015, Tyson Fury became the lineal heavyweight champion. He dethroned Vladimir Klitschko. In Klitschko's backyard, he was the underdog, and the man in his corner was his trainer and uncle Peter Fury. The Gypsy King is on the comeback trail, and today we speak to the man who took him to the top of the heavyweight division. Here's Peter Fury with Steve Lillis.
So Peter, you must have been glad to see the back of 2017.
Yeah, more than many ways, to get all the proceedings out the way and move on to a fresh start. So very happy that everything's put to bed.
Yeah. And what was it actually like for you? How much stress did it cause you personally that last year?
Well, it is. It caused a lot of stress on the family and stuff. But, we dealt with it day in, day out for nearly 2 years. So it's, unless you've been in these positions, people don't realise what it's like. But of course, it takes a toll. It's very stressful circumstances.
Yeah.
But thankfully, it's out of the way.
And what was it like, reading all the stuff on Twitter and Facebook from people just, hammering at you all the time?
Well, people don't know the facts behind anything, when things go up on the social medias, people just seem to believe anything they read. But there's a lot of trolls out there, but like I said, sensible people, they know that you can't believe all that you read. So it didn't, it's not nice, Steve, but it's what it is. It's life, when you're in the public domain, these kind of things happen.
Yeah. So what was it like the day when you come out the UK hearing and everything was sorted for Hughie and Tyson?
Yeah, it was a very happy moment. We worked very hard for it. So very, very delighted, Steve. That's all I can say about it. We're just glad. Well, me personally, and I know Hughie as well, I think we're just very, very happy it's come to a conclusion.
Yeah. Let's talk about Hughie. Is he still hurting from the Parker loss, given that, you all felt very hard done by on the scorecards?
I think it's a blessing in disguise. I think Hughie did win the fight. In my opinion, he did win the fight. He was catching with cleaner punches. But Hughie can do a lot more. So it's good in the respect that he's come away without the decision, because now he's tested it, he knows what it's like, and he can correct the things he didn't do then.
Yeah. Well, what is it you're looking to do with him in 2018? Is he going to go straight back in at world level? Is he going to fight domestically, or is it going to be a few international opponents initially?
However we can get, he's ready for world level, Hughie. But it's like I said, it's whoever we can get for him. Because believe it or not, Steve, you know, people are avoiding Hughie Fury at the moment. You know, it's very difficult to get in fights. Everybody's talking it, wanting fights, but I can tell you now that we're struggling to get Hughie fights at the moment.
I mean, he is that who needs him club though, isn't he? When you see, you know, fast-handed moves for a heavyweight, he's everything a heavyweight shouldn't be in style.
Well, yeah, there's that. He's a fabulous talent. He's going to be around, like I always said, he's going to be around a long time. He's just turned 23. You know, I think it was on his birthday when he fought. He was only 4 days into his 23rd birthday. So he's a real special talent, the kid. And he's, you know, we've had a good conversation about what he did and what the things he should have done. And it's all part of the growing process. So he'll come back a lot stronger from it. And he knows what he's got to do. But it's all right, you know, thinking you're making something on points. You know, it's like I said, you've got to take it off the champion and do more, put more shots together. So he knows the things that he should have done and what he's got to do in future. So it'd be interesting to see his next fight.
Have you got a date yet?
We're looking realistically in April.
And you're just looking for anybody, world level, international, just you're appealing for someone to fight him?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. As long as the opponent's credible, we'll take it. Yeah. So, but like I said, if we can get a world level opponent, we'll take that as well.
Yeah. Does Parker have a chance against Joshua?
Yeah, I think he does. You know, Joshua's a big hitter. Parker's got to be careful of the power. Parker's a good boxer himself. He's got a good chin, but he's not got to get carried away with that good chin, thinking that's enough. Because you can have a good chin against Joshua, and if he hits you properly, you're going. So he's a big puncher, Joshua. It's gonna. I think it's not going to be all one-way traffic. You know, surprises happen. You know, look at Carlos Takam. Nobody expected him to give Joshua the kind of trouble he did. And Carlos Takam, he's nowhere near the same size as Parker. Parker's a bigger man. He's got, you know, and Parker's already beat Takam. So styles make fights. The two world champions. I think it's going to be a tough fight for Joshua.
Yeah. And just ask you, is Tyson going to be back with you for his comeback?
No, I don't believe he is. He's doing his own thing, Tyson. So, you know, best luck to him. And I'm just going to concentrate now with my own fighters, my son, and one or two others I've got around me. No,
I just asked you because there was a quote from Tyson where he didn't rule out working with you again. That was all. I know he's in Marbella.
Yeah, you know, Tyson's doing his own thing out there, and like I said, you know, best of luck to him. You know, look, as far as I'm concerned, he's my nephew. I got him to win the world titles. Happiest times of our life, you know, and I'm whatever he does in his future, I wish him all the best with it. But for me, there'll never be a moment like Dusseldorf, and I'm just working towards the same experience again to make that happen again.
Yeah. With Hughie, yeah?
Exactly.
Yeah. And what other fighters have you got in the stable for 2018, Peter?
Well, we're doing discussions now with MTK, and we're looking at various options going into 018 this year. So the options are open, really. I haven't really got anyone at the moment. I've got Peter McDonough. There's Conchian. So we're just looking at restructuring stuff and just going with the flow, really. I'm not really looking for anybody's strength. I'm just happy with what we got and just going forward.
That's pretty in-depth from Peter Fury. Steve, a couple of things to touch on there. Firstly, on Hughie. So he had the title shot against WBO World Heavyweight Champion Joseph Parker. He lost that narrowly, I guess it was in the end. What do you make of what should Hughie do next?
Well, listening to Pete there, it looks like they're not looking to go to domestic level and, you know, challenge people like Sam Sexton, those sort of guys. Although Dillian White has been mentioned, and I'm sure that's the sort of fight that would attract them. But I think they're going to go international level. There's plenty of good fights out there for him. You know, maybe people like Bryant Jennings, those sort of guys, who are on the fringes of that world class. You know, who aren't going to, you know, pull up any trees, but they're good learning fights for Hughie. I'd just like to see him have a quite an easy year, 2 or 3 fights to work his way back in, and then make another world title assault. As Peter said, he's got a style that is really awkward, and it's going to they will find it hard matching him. But there's plenty of people that will come over and fight him. Say Bryant Jennings comes to mind, Alexander Dimitrenko. There's good fights out there for him. But it sounds to me, unless it's worth their while, they won't be stepping into the domestic fray at all.
He's still so young as well, isn't he?
Still a baby, plenty of time on his side before he matures. And you know what? Having this nice break from the Parker fight will have done him good, because he works really, really hard in the gym, and there's still hope for him. But to come back, he could win a world title. He's capable of it.
Do you think it takes any pressure off him now that, in a strange way, he had that loss? He's no longer got an O to protect. Sometimes that's a weight off some fighters' shoulders. We see Luke Campbell. He's come on leaps and bounds seemingly since he lost his O. Do you think the same could be said for Hughie?
No, I think that hurt him losing his O. He's from the, he's a traveller, very, very proud man. But he most probably thought he was never going to be beaten. And you saw how much it hurt afterwards when they was in uproar about the decision. I personally think Parker won a close fight. I know Peter and all the Furies disagree. You only have to see how angry Tyson was in the ring on the night. Disagree. That shows how much that defeat hurt. I haven't heard them say, "I'll learn from." It's pressure off me. I've heard them say we'll learn from it. I haven't heard anyone in that camp say it's pressure off me.
And what about Tyson then? That was for me. That was the first time I've heard Peter talk about Tyson since Tyson's proposed comeback. Sounds like they're not going to be working together. What do you make of that?
Look, Peter got the best out of Tyson. No one can dispute that. He's most certainly been the only trainer that's got stuff out of Tyson. Early on in his career, it was like a revolving door training Tyson. Steve Egan, who played a big part in his amateur career, tried. Robert McCracken had a go. Brian Hughes, his uncle Hughie, Emmanuel Stewart, and Chris Johnson, I think, was in his corner a couple fights. Was a Canadian super middleweight. I think Frank Maloney promoted him for a while. Tried it, didn't work there. He was just. I remember when Peter come in and took over from Chris Johnson, he was saying, Chris told me to be a world champion, but there was so much wrong with Tyson, what he was doing in the ring. People were blowing smoke up his ass, shall we say, and he doesn't need it. He's now with Ben Davison, and Ben's, Ben got stick over to Billy Joe Saunders when he was in his corner for that fight last year against
Akavov.
The Russian guy he fought in Glasgow, and Ben was just stepping in, sort of helping Billy, and that training camp was Billy's own fault more than Ben, and Ben got a lot of stick, and I feel that Ben's on a hiding to nothing with this. I do feel sorry for him, because if Tyson Fury goes and looks sensational, his comeback it'd be the style Peter gave him. If he looks awful, poor Ben will get knocked from pillar to post. So I think Ben Davison has got to be cut a bit of slack here.
Well, what I am enjoying is that he's out in Marbella at the moment. Tyson Fury's alongside Billy Joe Saunders. Ben Davison's working with both of them, and there's a lot of cool videos going up on social media.
They're good. I'll tell you what, he's still got his hands are still fast, Tyson. I don't know what he's going to be like back in the ring, because he's had 2 years out, and first to admit he's abused his body in the 2 years, but his hands are still fast. And what's great about Tyson is he still looks very big and there's weight to come off, but how healthy he looks in his face. The skin's shiny, he's living well, and that's fantastic. And as for Billy Joe Saunders, he looks like he could get in the ring tomorrow with you, Dev.
Well, let's hope not. Billy, if you are listening, I do not want that work. Also, Steve, you've been very, very busy. You're always very busy, and we sent you out to do a little Q&A with Frank Warren. So this was what we asked the question on Twitter. What do you want to speak to Frank Warren about? And we had tons of questions come in. My man Steve Lillis has picked the best ones, and we've split it into 2 parts in this podcast. Here's part 1.
Frank, this is from Chris Monroe 1. If you could make one dream fight this year, what would it be?
Dream fight this year would be Billy Joe Saunders against the winner of Canelo and Golovkin.
Fingers crossed you can do it.
I've got everything crossed. I'm sitting here looking like Ben Turbin.
At our prayer asked, what's the top 2 fights you would want to deliver this year? Who and where?
Obviously one I've just mentioned. The other one, I'd like to do Tyson Fury against Joshua.
Do you think you could do that this year?
Why not? Why not? If they want to make the fight, let's try and do it.
And Tyson's looking around still?
Tyson's looking around, so we're in business of being there to be looked at.
Debbie One Wish asks, how many shows do you hope to put on this year?
I would be looking at a minimum of 20 shows this year.
Colin John Cooper asked, to keep the growing stable busy, would Frank consider bringing back Fight School?
That's a very good question. We actually have been in talks in trying to revive that. We may be doing that. That's a pretty valid question considering the amount of young fighters we've got at the moment.
Bronco Darts asked, and it's a good question this, what is your biggest promoting disappointment? The one talent you're excited about but never fulfilled their potential? I'm sure there's been a few, but if you can name a couple and then the main one.
Well, Tony Collins. He was a young guy from, I think he was a light
Yateley, wasn't he? Yeah.
Come from Yateley, near Reading. He was unbelievable. I remember him sparring with Lloyd Hunnigan when he was 17. He stood Lloyd on his head, but he was just didn't live the life. He was a bad lad, and at the end of the day, it all fell apart for him. He was a real big disappointment. There's been quite a few of his, but you know, he probably was the standout guy.
A-Star Boxing asked, when will Selby Warrington be confirmed, and who will the winner target later this year?
On Wednesday.
And who will the winner target?
Obviously, Carl Frampton. That's what we're trying to look at. That's what we're trying to do.
Danny Boy Frost, who I know is a big BoxNation fan, asks, how realistic is it that you will be able to get Inuwa over here to the UK to challenge Tete? And if you could, would it take place? But I guess it has to.
I'd love to do it, but I've got to be honest. A fight like that, the Japanese would be better placed to put it on. Having said that, we would do all we can to get it here. But it's a fight that Zelensky wants, and he's been banging on about all the big fights, and that is for me the biggest one out there.
But it would have to be in Japan, wouldn't it?
You would think so, yeah.
AB Chillos, when can we expect to see Mitchell Smith back in action?
I don't know at the moment. He's talking about earlier about disappointments. He's a disappointment. Let's hope he gets himself back on track, because at the moment he's a major disappointment, recent disappointment.
Is he still with you then?
Yeah, he's got a contract this year.
Ewan Collin asks, how soon would you step Dubois up against the likes of Takam, Charles Martin, those sort of fighters, and will we see the world title push, say, this time next year in 2019?
We're trying to push him sensibly, and obviously, he's a precocious talent. Having said that, he only had seven senior amateur bouts, and he needs to grow a bit more. But yeah, that fight's we'll be looking for next year. We're not looking to put the handbrake on him, but we've got to make the right moves at the right time, and he needs to get more experience. He's such a powerful puncher. He's taking people out, as soon as he gets in the ring.
Who are you going to find to give him rounds?
And that's what we're working on. Not easy. It's not easy, but you know what? I'd much rather it's my problem than anybody else's.
Well, Steve, let's reflect on a couple of things that Frank has said there. Firstly, if Frank Warren is able to make Naoya Inoue, I hope the pronunciation's correct there, against Zolani Tete, does he become your favourite person in the whole wide world?
Oh, he's up there. It's a dream fight, isn't it? It's a purist dream, a fan's dream. People love a fight dream. You cannot, if that fight is made, you cannot not like it. You cannot find a reason to knock it. If you do, you might as well go and follow, the World Scrabble Championships or something like that. Look, it's a great fight, but the bottom line is, as Frank sort of touched on, there's no way the fight can be made in Britain or in South Africa. There isn't the money in South African boxing, hence why Tete's over here. And from what Tete, let's be, he's a brilliant world champion, but he's not a big draw in Britain at this moment. So the fight can only happen in one place, and that's in Inoue land in Japan. What a fighter Inoue is. 2 world titles, is it already? Light flyweight and super flyweight.
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, 15-0, 13 by KO. As good as what Zolani Tete is, what a massive task that would be for him. But you know what? He'll go there. He'll have a chance. He'll believe he has a chance, and he'll get a fantastic payday for it. And the boxing world will get a fight they can drool over. And a lot of people, go on Twitter saying, we don't see enough of these Asian superstars, and they have a great point.
Yeah.
We don't see enough of them. Not just people say, well, BoxNation should be showing them. Anywhere in the world outside of Japan, no one seems to see these guys. Apart from that. that part of the Asian continent. So it would be a chance for everybody to see Inoue around the world then.
Well, they've taken good steps with Inoue because he was on the. I think he was on the last Superfly card.
He was that, yeah. There was talk of him going on the next one, but he's giving up the title now.
Well, they wanted Kawiafai. Apparently, Kawiafai was offered the Inoue fight, but his team turned it down. Maybe the money wasn't right, etc., etc. What I'm finding very refreshing about this is Zolani Tete himself was asked on Twitter, would you take the Inoue fight? And he said, yes, these are the fights that we're looking for, and that's so refreshing.
He's a warrior. He's an African warrior. Life has never dealt him great hands growing up, I shouldn't think. So having to go to somewhere in Tokyo or one of the satellite towns there in Japan and fight him won't hold any fear for him at all.
Well, I still think it could happen over here. I'm a dreamer. No, it's Tete time.
Hey, we can all dream that. We'd love to see Inoue over here, and I know you're a big fan of Tete, and you got to know the team well, Dave. Economically, it cannot work over here unless there's Japanese money bankrolling it, and Japanese money isn't going to bank Inoue in a high-risk fight in the other man, shall we say, in inverted commas, backyard.
Well, let's pick the bones of what else Frank was saying there. He talked about Golovkin versus Saunders is a fight that he would love to make this year. Canelo versus Golovkin 2. What are your spies telling you? Is this rematch going to happen? Can Saunders nick in?
And anything can happen in boxing. What was the deal 5 minutes ago is a deal that was never on 5 minutes later. But from what I'm hearing at the moment, they're pretty close to announcing May 5. I'm not sure of the venue. I know there's some moves to take it to the Dallas Cowboys Stadium where they can get 100,000 fans in, and where Liam Smith fought Canelo, and it was one of the greatest atmospheres I've been privileged to be in. I'll be very surprised if Billy Joe sidled in there before that they have their rematch. There's too much money at stake for the rematch, but certainly the winner, particularly if it's Golovkin, him against Billy Joe, I think can be made later this year. Whether it could happen in this country is another thing.
Well, that's one I think probably could. I mean,
it could. I mean, Canelo versus Billy Joe wouldn't happen in this country. That has to go over there. But Golovkin's never been scared of travelling, and the money could be found, I think, in this country to bring it here.
I would hope so. Well, let me just play a bit of devil's advocate there, because it felt like heading into Saunders versus Lemieux, Golden Boy had a plan for Lemieux to win that title, and then maybe they were going to set Canelo up with Lemieux instead of Golovkin and put Golovkin off, wait for him to get a bit older. And what do you think of that line of thinking, Steve?
You've just answered it, Dev. That exactly was the game they're playing. Don't worry about that. They would have been absolutely sick that man got turned apart by Billy Joe Saunders. That was their thinking, without a shadow of a doubt. We bring the. Hey, look, if they didn't have planes, they would have either let Frank Warren put that fight in this country or gone to purse bids. Frank would have won that because of the 80-20 he'd have had to play with in Saunders' favour. That was all about buying a title. Costing them a lot of money.
Yeah.
That was virtually saying, we'll give that much money, we'll get the title, and then we can make our fight. And then, of course, when it comes to the rematch, we've got a title to take to Gennady Golovkin. But that was messed up, shall we say. And I remember a quote a couple of days after the fight from Eric Gomez, and he was asked, have you spoke to Lemieux since? I haven't spoken to him.
Well, Billy Joe Saunders has been fairly relentless in his pursuit of Gennady Golovkin on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, you name it. He is putting out videos saying, I want Golovkin. If Canelo's not going to have the fight, I'm ready to go now. All of that kind of thing. Another man who is quite relentless on Twitter is a young man by the name of Sonny Edwards. Now, for those who don't know about Sonny Edwards, he's 6-0. He is a flyweight, or super flyweight. He kind of jumps between the two. He was part of the GB amateur setup. He's the younger brother of former world title challenger Charlie Edwards. He's a menace inside of the ring and outside of it. And he has become unrelenting in his pursuit of a fight with Paddy Barnes, the King of Belfast. So I caught up with Sonny Edwards over the phone. He's the newly crowned WBO European Super Flyweight Champion. And the first thing I asked him was, does it feel any different now that you've got a belt?
Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm very realistic. I know what sort of stage I'm, where I'm at in my career. But yeah, it's a good little stepping stone. It's nothing. But if I'm speaking honestly, it's nothing that I'd be content with finishing my career on. Do you know what I mean? I'm very, very far away from that. Like, I want to achieve the world honours, so this is just a good way to get my name in the world rankings. Give me a bit more of a bargaining tool and sort of had more people speaking about me.
There's a sweet little knockout there as well, Sonny. That's your second in the 6 fights. Are you going for a bit of a power surge at the moment? Are you doing anything different?
Well, I've started growing some chest there now, so no, and also like I've just turned 22, but even then I'm not a mature, like I'm not a physically mature 22-year-old. You know what I mean? So you can just see that with my appearance, but yeah, we'll get there. But I think more than anything, I fought at my real weight twice as a professional. Every other fight has been super flyweight, and well, every fight really still has been bantamweight and now super flyweight. But my last fight I came in at like I think it was about 51, so it was really a flyweight, but we had to be over the flyweight limit because it was for the super flyweight title. That's what was agreed at 8-1, and they came easy well within that. But yeah, like I've boxed 2 people my weight, and they've both been stopped. I've had fights scheduled for 6 rounds that was scheduled for 10 rounds. I've still only done 4 rounds because as soon as I start breaking into them after that first 3 rounds, 4 rounds, that's when I start hurting people because I'm accurate and I'm elusive. I'm a nightmare to hit, and then it's just a mixture of everything, really.
Paddy Barnes. Now,
my best mate.
I saw a bit of back and forth on Twitter a couple of nights ago between you. Paddy called out the world champion. He called out Sho Kimura, I think his name is.
Yes.
And then you put out a tweet with like a picture of you saying, everyone's turning down fights with me, and something along those lines. And he picked up on it. Talk me through what happened.
Well, it's been a fight that I've made no secret. I've wanted for a while, really, more behind the scenes, like in that side of things. But yeah, I've come out with my my WBO super flyweight European title win, a belt that Paddy Barnes holds at the weight below. And yeah, they're asking me who do you want? And I've watched Paddy Barnes' professional fight. Don't get me wrong, he had a very good amateur career. Watched him a fair few times, and admittedly, I thought there's a few times he got the luck of the green. You know what I mean? To get these medals, but no, we don't talk about that. They're in the history books. But yeah, so it come about that way, and I spoke to like the people at Frank Warren because they sort of go, "So what's next? You know what I mean? What do you want to do in 2018?" And I was just told, "Well, yeah, if you think you're ready for that fight, we'll put it towards him." I got a message saying, "Very rare to put towards him." After the new year, I get a message saying, "Paddy Barnes' team don't want it." That's when I see him start calling out a world champion. I'm thinking, mate, Frank Warren said himself that Paddy Barnes, if he's going to be ready for a world title, it's not now, and it's at the end of this year. Because obviously last year he said it at the end of next year. We'll look at one. We'll look at where we are there. And if he can't beat me, a 22-year-old that he's, you know what I mean, saying he's a novice and saying I'm shit and all this, then what? Like, how can he go and expect to go and beat a top fighter like Sho Kimura? Like,
but if that message has come from the Barnes camp saying we don't want the fight, do you think that's because they're scared of you, or do you think that's because they've got bigger fish to fry? Well, that's how they'll see it.
They know that if I got in the ring with him, what would happen, and I'm convinced. I am absolutely convinced because they know my styles are wrong for him. He gets too frustrated. He's too easy to hit. He's shown he got the majority decision, split decision win over I played like third fight or whatever it was, which I thought he lost, and I know a lot of people thought he lost that as well. But you know what I mean, in your hometown, in your home setup, you're going to get those. But I personally think he knows I'm all wrong for him because they can try and say like I run like in the summer when I even sparred, I did 2 6-round spars with Ryan Farag, and we've had back and forth, me and Ryan Farag. There's no love lost there, but the people in the gym know I gave it to him and his training partners. And I'm not even going to say what he said to me after the spar about it, but he went, "Wow, that's the hardest spar he's had."
So have you met Paddy? Have you met Paddy?
I've met Paddy. I've never sparred him, but I've met him 100 times, and it's not that there's any resent. Like the Irish boxing page put out, there seems to be a genuine dislike, but it's not that. It's not personal. It's not It's boxing. If I'm looking at Paddy Barnes on big shows, getting fed bodies, getting blown up to like a level that he really is not performing at as a professional boxer, then I'm going to be like, oh, hold on, let me prove that I'd embarrass him, and I know I would, and I would be so confident like you wouldn't believe, because I know for a fact I would outbox him for the first 5 rounds, easy, because he's just too slow-footed. He's old man Barnes. You know what I mean? He's way past it for me personally. But
what about his last performance? Did you catch his last performance in Belfast on the Frampton?
I did, and yeah, it was a nice little knockout. But don't get me wrong, the actual performance wasn't nothing amazing. You watched the person he fought, and he was moving around the ring, tripping up over his own feet. So he was no fantastic boxer. It's like, if that's his only stoppage, that boxer was terrible. And if you look at it in the clips before, he was blowing. Paddy was blowing. Like, he was physically looking like out of breath. He was, because he hasn't got in his tank no more. I don't think he's trained professionally. I don't think I don't think he's hungry enough. I think the reason he's trying to sidestep me and sort of give me the whole, what do you offer me, and all that whole talk, is because he knows that getting beat by me, his whole amateur pedigree, that don't stand for anywhere near as much anymore for his hold-on fights. But I just don't know what it is.
Is this the classic case of risk versus reward, though, Sonny, where he's risking a lot by taking on, you're a lot younger than him, you're a lot...
Oh, but he's going to fight, if he fights a world-level fighter as a pro, he's going to get found out, because he's going to get really found out from me, and maybe you can say that. And if you look at my interviews, before he started sort of saying, no one likes you, your mouthpieces, and that, I'm not a mouthpiece, because I want the fight. It's not like I'm chatting a good fight and then sort of hiding away from it. I said, I'm ready, I'll come to your hometown, 7th of April, that's what we're looking at, that's what we're aiming for. But he just didn't want to know. And he's saying, all he said this whole time is, I'm trying to fight a world title, I'm trying to fight Sho Kimura. Okay, so when that fight doesn't happen, for whatever reason, because I know Frank Warren liked this fight, because it's a fight that a lot of people get behind, and it could be made as chief support for the Frampton card on the 7th of April, do you know what I mean? I know it's a fight a lot of people like, other people going off my phone non-stop, and I've been looking at him, he's been getting loads of messages, a lot of people going, you'd knock him out, shut him up, da-da-da. But then just as many people going, oh, you're underestimating him, do you know what I mean? Like, get the fight on, like, why don't you fight? Like, I don't know what it is in this day and age where a lot of boxers want to bypass and skip the domestic scene altogether. Yes, you've got a good amateur pedigree, but what you've shown in that professional ring does not warrant any amount of fast-tracking. Apart from his age, being, 45 or whatever he is, he has not...
I think he's
warranted.
30.
Yeah, it's all in the ballpark, but he apart from his amateur pedigree, which is great, that the fight that was winning the medals isn't the fighter that you're seeing today. And it's not. It's 8 years on from when he won the medal, or 4 years on, whatever it is, since he won the second one. But yeah, so I just don't think he's warranted bypassing the whole domestic scene. But why does he want to bypass the whole domestic scene? Because I think a lot of fighters in that domestic scene beat him. That's my personal opinion. And I want to get my foot in there first, and I want to be the one to take his own.
So your message is pretty clear then, Sonny. You want a bit of Paddy Barnes. You think you can beat him.
We can dance. You know what I mean? We can have a little dance. Like, it's fun. And it'd be he's got a good personality. He's got a good backing. He's got fire in his belly. And I think I'm bringing it out of him. What we've seen so far is a very lethargic, a very bored Paddy Barnes. Let's get him a fight that he's going to get up for. There's a lot of people that would buy into this fight, and I think that's what he's scared of, and that's why he's really now, because he did bite and he did give the nibble, and I think that was his biggest mistake now, because I know what boxing's like. Every person that has him on Twitter, knows him in person, close friends, family, anyone that sees him in the street that's seen it will ask, when are you going to shut him up? Do you know what I mean? Like, so you can't run from that.
Do you know when you're out next?
Well, as soon as someone will take the fight.
Yeah.
You know what? It's frustrating. Like, last thing on the matter, tried getting the fight with Prince Patel. It was offered to him. Didn't want to know.
He's winning Hungarian belts at the moment.
Oh yeah, I know. We could unify the two biggest belts in boxing history, couldn't we? The European and the what is it? The UBO Inter-Federation, Intergalactic, Space Jam.
I hadn't seen any footage. I saw it pop up on Twitter, but I mean, he's taking himself away. He's doing his own thing clearly, and he's picking up gold, huh?
I've performed in more. I performed in front of more people in my bedroom than from the pictures I saw. You know what I mean? There's no one there.
Hopefully he comes back over, because I'd still like to see the Patel-Edwards fight. I think that's a lot of fun to build up. You need that.
But he's blocked me on Twitter, though. I need to stop bullying these boxers.
He's blocked you on Twitter?
Oh, he's blocked me on Twitter. Do you know what I mean? Louis Norman's my mate now, because he's gone up weight. But he blocked me on Twitter at one point. I'm waiting for Paddy to do it, but I think that'd be more of a pride thing that he won't.
What are you going to do if Paddy Barnes blocks you on Twitter?
But nah, like I said, it's all jokes, it's all fun. I enjoy this too much. It's like, they don't call me Showtime. I haven't had that nickname since I was, 11, 12, for no reason. We put on a show, and my performance would be what elevates me. It wouldn't be going for a payday, as he tried to suggest, because I know I'd ping the life out of him. So, yeah, as soon as I'm put on that platform, then my career's going to rocket. But we're in no rush. Do you know what I mean? I've just turned 22. Or, as I like to say, my second year being 21. Do you know what I mean? I'm going to be young forever. I'm Peter Pan. I'm going to be young forever. Especially the way I
imagine that at 41, you will probably look about 25. You've got such a baby face.
Yeah, I'm just going to start my pro career again, and do you know what I mean? Like, just disappear for a few, grow a beard, if I can grow one by then, and then I'm flying.
Why not?
Well, Sonny Edwards' intentions are very clear. He wants that Paddy Barnes work. I caught up with Paddy, who perhaps has his eye on a bigger prize. As Sonny mentioned, Paddy Barnes has been calling out the WBO World Flyweight Champion Sho Kimura. Paddy Barnes is ranked number 10 at flyweight with the WBO and holds the WBO European and also the WBO Intercontinental title. So I caught up with Paddy on the phone. And the first thing I asked him was, how does it feel being a double WBO double champ?
The champ cup? To be honest with you, it doesn't really do nothing, like, because at the end of the day, they're only ranking belts. Nothing to be really celebrated about. It's only, they're nice belts to have, don't get me wrong, but it's all to do with the full ranking. And I'm number 10 at the minute, and I'm hopeful that the world title fight is very soon.
Well, I saw last week on Twitter you called out Sho Kimura, who is the WBO champ. Tell us about that. Do you think it's going to happen?
Well, to be honest with you, I see the game is taking into your age. I just thought maybe he has Twitter and searched his name, and he had it. And it seems that there's a lot of fights being made over Twitter. So I should throw my heart in and call him, because, by the way, the fight could be made because I'm in the top 10 rankings, and he had a monthly fight there against number 1 contender. So if maybe he's a little vampire, and he is, hopefully he could pick me, because for him it would be a good thing. It'd be a positive thing for him to fight me, because let's be honest, nobody really knows him outside Japan. No one really knows me anywhere either, except Ireland and the UK or whatever. But I was taking on like the Carl Fratton shows and Michael Collins shows when they're over. When he's over, and obviously that's shown on BT Sport. Carl Fratton could possibly show on Showtime, and Mick Collins could be shown on ESPN. So if he was to fight me in a show like that there, the exposure he would get would be unbelievable. So, it would be a major bonus for him.
So he's the guy that knocked out Zhao Shilling a couple of fights ago, and that was a fight that you were previously targeting. So how much have you seen of Kimura then?
It's really big Shilling. It was on YouTube, and the watching a few of his fights. He's obviously good, he's world champion, but he's not something that I've never seen before, and I would be confident in beating him.
So you're 5 fights into your professional career, so you're very confident that you can beat him right now.
Definitely.
And you called him out on the Thursday, I think it was Thursday last week on Twitter, and it wasn't long before you were being called out yourself. I think you know who I'm talking about. Sonny Edwards has been very vocal. Any message for him?
I'll stop replying to his tweets because like he's an absolute no one. He's only a kid. But for me to fight him, he says, "Oh, if it's just me to fight, why don't they fight me?" So it's not what he says. I'm 30 years old. I'm not going to be in this game for a long time. So I'm not going to put myself through a 12-week camp for a backward step. So that would be a waste of a fight, waste of a camp. And I'll be fair on my career. Rather than waste 12 weeks training to try something like that. So I'm just going to push on and he's going to be butterfly with. But on that note, I haven't really replied him because he's no one. He's never going to get fight no matter what. But I've been the friends have been sending me some of the tweets. Some of them for me have been very insulting. And lies. He's told a lot of lies. So if I was him, I'm not going to say that on Twitter. If I was him, I'd be very, very careful in the communication because I don't take no shit. And I'd be careful the next time I got somebody. That's all I'm saying.
Well, what do you consider to be you said that he's been insulting, he said some lies. Some of the things he's said, I don't know if they are very insulting to you. He says he'll ping the life out of you. He's calling you old man Barnes. He says you're trying to bypass domestic level because you'll get beat. He's saying all these sorts of things. What in particular is insulting to you, and you think he's lying as well?
But I didn't even know he said that stuff. But I was a statement saying I'm bypassing the domestic level because of the beat. If I come to the domestic level, I'm sure as hell not allowing international level, so that doesn't make sense. But he's saying, even his brother, there's video evidence of his brother getting spawned. His brother's army, piece too, by the way. He tells lies, but he says that I fought the last fight, the Lego Warrior and toilet cleaner. I fought someone who actually fought the Titans, and he drew with someone 2 fights ago who's in the top 10 of 3 ranking bodies. So the guy who fought last fight was the crazy boxer. He's just talking absolute shit, and he's going to be sorry he said it.
So he's not really on your radar in terms of a fight next because you're pushing on to world level. Is that kind of the message from the Barnes camp?
He's not now. He's only really here. He's quite devilish matches.
Yeah.
He fought that. I fought for Johnny himself, but he fought all of them. And I think he's always a kid. He's trying to peel away from himself, but he's blocked the wrong tree, and he's moving off the wrong person. Because he cares boxing and people call me blue. I get that, not fair enough, but to someone who I genuinely don't like call me out, I'll take it personal and I'll sort of look.
I'm sure this isn't the last we've heard of it. Do you think you'll ever block him on Twitter? That's something he said. He's been blocked by Prince Patel. He's been blocked by another couple of opponents that he's been kind of hounding on Twitter. Do you think you'll just block him?
No, I wouldn't block him. I actually follow him on Twitter, and as long as he's going to unfollow him, because if I do, he would put it on and say, Barnes is blah, 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 but I won't be surprised maybe sometime this year that he blocked me or followed me. By the way, I'm not trying to be funny. I'm being barely serious. I'm not joking. I genuinely hit him.
Well, fingers crossed, Paddy. You get the Show Kimura fight, and it's another big night in Belfast. You got Frampton. Looks like he's fighting Donaire. Yourself against Kimura would be a very, very excellent fight to have on that show as well. So fingers crossed for that. What do you think the chances are? I mean, has it gone any further than the Twitter back and forth, or is it just something in your head at the moment?
It's just something in the head at the moment, but I think the team will try to do it anyway. But fingers crossed, if anyone gets it, if you get it, huh?
Well, that was Paddy Barnes there, the King of Belfast. He is a little insulted. Well, not a little. He is insulted by some of Sonny Edwards' comments. And he actually said Sonny Edwards will never get the fight with him. Why is he going to put himself through a 12-week training camp just to take a step back? Steve, talk to me about Sonny Edwards and Paddy Barnes.
I can see why Barnes is a little bit miffed. Well, he's more than miffed. I mean, that fight over the weekend, it might have only been mooted by people, or, you know, might be a good fight down that line. It's suddenly become a fight people are discussing. So Sonny's lit the touch paper. Paddy's reacted. It's a fight that could happen now because they're at it with each other. And Sonny's seen that Paddy's bit. And I don't think Sonny is going to be shy and take a step back now at all. I really don't.
He's certainly not going to be
shy.
You
know, look, Paddy did it as an amateur. I think you're European champion, 2 Olympic bronze medals, Commonwealth Games double champion.
Yeah.
He saw it, did it, wore the T-shirt during a long amateur career. Sonny turned pro young. A lot younger than Paddy. He's 20. I think he was 22
just
on New Year's
22,
Day.
Yeah.
So he's not going to have achieved what he did, but he achieved quite a lot for domestically as an amateur. A lot of national titles, ABA champion, beat Gamal Yafai 2015, who went to the Olympics. So he had a solid amateur CV, and with these flyweights, you don't need a lot of fights to go and fight in so we say good high quality matchups, and it's certainly a fight that to me would appeal. But you look at that whole division, what Frank Warren's got there. He promotes Paddy Barnes through his link with MTK and a good working relationship with them. He's got Sonny Edwards on his book, Joe Mafosa, who's good, had a couple of fights. Harvey Horn's turned over, and who's with Mark Tibbs.
He's exciting.
Very excited about Harvey, and I think we might try and get him on the podcast, get his opinion of the flyweights in the coming weeks. And of course, Commonwealth champion Jay Harris, who we can't ignore. But I mean, to me, the number one is the British champion Andrew Selby, who hasn't boxed for a while. But there's a lot of good fights to be made there. But Paddy, I think, is he 30 now?
Yeah.
13, and he's looking at Sho Kimura, who took the title from Zhu Shiming, who he'd been chasing because of the amateur rivalry, and Shiming got the better of Paddy, and Paddy was, quite aggrieved over that. With Kimura, he come through a world title defence New Year's Eve against Choshiyuki Agarashi. That was quite a bit of a bloodbath. But I think I was reading on AsianBoxing.com, which is a very good site for all those Asian boxing fans, and he was saying on there he's had offers to go to China, but he'd rather stay in Japan because he's starting to get a TV. He's hoping for a TV deal there. But money talks, and if if Japanese TV isn't willing to cough up for him, I'm sure MTK will pay for him to come over to Belfast. So I think we're more likely to see Paddy go for a world title before he fights the likes of Sonny Edwards. But it's not like the mad sort of fight that shouldn't be happening that Paddy might be suggesting. I think it's a good fight.
Well, what Paddy did was react to Sonny Edwards on Twitter. That surprised me, actually.
Paddy on Twitter, he's brutal. He is brutal on Twitter.
What he said there at the end of the interview was actually quite amusing, and this will be quite something if this happens. I asked him if he thinks he will end up blocking Sonny Edwards, and he said no, Sonny Edwards will end up blocking me if he carries on Twitter. So that could be quite something. I can't imagine Sonny Edwards reaching for the block button.
What was funny, there were some words this morning going on, and going on between them again, and to wind Paddy up, one of Paddy's boxing mates copied Sonny Edwards in just to keep it going. So this one is going to continue on Twitter for a lot longer than it's going to take for them to get them in the ring, I think.
Well, what I'd like to see next, if that can't happen, is there's Paddy Barnes against Kimura, Frampton against Donaire, massive night in Belfast. Paddy wins his world title. I'd imagine that's the dream on their side of things.
Yeah, it'd be fantastic if that could happen. But you know what? Sonny has a few more fights. Sonny and Paddy can build up their rivalry a bit, and you got a great Ireland versus England, Belfast versus London showdown.
You never know. Well, let's go back to Frank Warren. We brought you part 1 of Steve's Q&A with him a little earlier. Here's part 2.
Tweet Street 21 asks, how can the tout sites such as StubHub be tackled so the secondary market can be eradicated and real fans can pay the fixed price?
Well, for me, that's one of the big bugbears of sport, our sport, and it's wrong. And how do you stop it? You've got to make complaints. You write to as a fan, you have the right to complain. You should be writing to your MP. There have been hearings in Parliament about this, parliamentary think tank, a team were put together, and they're passing legislation on this. It's wrong. And as much as Eddie Hearn keeps banging on about, whether I sell tickets or not, that's not what the issue is. The issue is, why are your tickets in massive blocks getting on StubHub site, secondary market? You're the one who knows, because they're your tickets. You're in control of where the tickets go up to a point. I can understand a couple of fans getting hold of tickets and putting them on there. People do that. But when there's suddenly 500 tickets on there, 300 tickets, you know who you're selling them to. Do something about it. So they are the StubHub culprits. StubHub sponsor them.
T-Lines 98 asks, is a fight between two of the best young prospects in Britain, Leon Woodstock Jr. and Zelfa Barrett, a realistic possibility for 2018? They're under the same banner, and of course the loser would still be able to rebuild.
Maybe by the end of the year. It certainly won't. It won't happen before then. And Leon's a little bit behind him fight-wise, as you know.
Another question here: would be any chance of getting Golovkin over here to fight Billy Joe in a stadium?
We would love to do that. His Arsenal stadium's there. If we could get that one in May, but it depends if he fights against Canelo or not. And I'm hearing they're going to be confirming that soon, but we'll see.
Yeah. Simon Leary 3 asks, would you be willing to put differences aside with Eddie Hearn to make some great fights this year with these
I haven't
fights?
got any differences with Eddie Hearn. My only difference with him is over StubHub. The rest of it I couldn't give a monkey's about. If it's a fight that suits one of my fighters, it will be made.
Stu Benson 1983, would you ever consider putting a tournament like the WB Super Series together for your fighters? Or
We've done series, we've done fights. We've got a mini series going with the 3 best featherweights in the country. We're making it happen, Super 6. But I like to get the best involved. It should be the best against the best. But it's a good series. Some of them are good fighters, some good fights on there, but the best fighters are not in there.
If there was a good series and it was lucrative for someone else to put them on, and say Selby, Frampton or Warrington was offered and it made sense money-wise, would you happy to let them fight in that?
If it made sense, yeah.
The Count asks, Amir Khan's talking of returning to the UK for his next fight. Billy Joe Saunders against him at catch weight?
In a heartbeat. Pick up the phone and we're here. We're here to do business with him.
And Stans 379 asks, would you like to promote Amir again?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. He won the world title with me. I guided him very well, and of course I'd like to. I like Amir. But he's got to show that he really wants to be fighting.
Well, Steve, let's look back on some of what Frank said there. So, Frank mentioned Zelfa Barrett against Leon Woodstock. He said perhaps towards the end of 2018. These are the 2 undefeated super featherweights. We've had them recently on the podcast, going back and forth. Is even the end of 2018 too soon for that fight, Steve?
Possibly, and as Frank highlights, Zelfa's a little bit more ahead of Leon at this stage.
He's 19-0.
Yeah, he's been boxing a bit pro a bit longer. I think he's a little bit ahead of him in this stage. So if they met this year, you'd think it was in Zelfa's favour, the fight. I'd much rather the fight 2019, maybe 2020. But but it's all about the pounds and pence adding up, being the right fight at the right time for both fighters. But as the guy that asked a question on the Twitter, he said, if they might fight now, the loser can still be built back up. And we got to remember, a loss to too many people, a loss isn't the end of the world. We were talking about Hughie Fury earlier on. He can still get back at world level. The loss to Parker isn't the end of the world, and it's too much about these days. If you have a loss, it's too much. There are pressure on some fighters, and as you said earlier in the podcast, some fighters. I'm almost relieved to be gone. Hughie Fury, I think that pride it's a different set of circumstances. The loser of that could be built back up. If it happened now, if it comes to 2020 and there was a world title at stake and one of them lost heavily, it's a lot harder to build back up. But I'd rather see the fight happen when they're both on real top dollar. But the longer, as you know, Dev, you've been around boxing a while, the longer you leave these matches, also on the flip side, the longer the risk of one of them getting beaten. Exactly. And then the fight loses its value. And it's like Bitcoins, everyone's waiting for the bubble to burst.
Good reference, Steve. Good reference. Yeah, there's always that danger of it marinading too far. That's the problem. I remember a fight that I badly wanted to see was Juan Manuel Lopez against Yuriorkis Gamboa, and they were both knocking heads, and then Lopez started getting his head knocked a bit himself, and then the fight kind of disappeared, and that was so disappointing.
Yeah, they happen, and boxing's littered with them, and we'll be in this game for another 20 years, Dev, and there'll be fights that don't happen. People are starting to get excited about this. It'll gradually become bigger and bigger, the rivalry, over the next 12 months. So perhaps in 12 months' time, it'll be impossible to ignore. And Frank might think, right, let's get them on now, and maybe something like in 18 months' time, it's maybe more realistic. But it's doing it at the right time, because if you did it now, it would be, what would it be for now? What money would there be for them both there? They both want well paid for this fight, and they both deserve to be well paid, because they're both great talents. And Zelfa, I think, is
he's one of your favourites, isn't he?
Hey, outside of outside of the heavyweight division, he's Frank Warren's best prospect.
Well, there was a couple of questions there on Amir Khan as well. Now, he has been teasing a big announcement. Hopefully, by the time this podcast goes out, that announcement hasn't been made, so this speculation is still somewhat valid. But here's what Amir Khan had to say on his Instagram page very recently.
Training camp soon, so can't wait to get this fight announced. And there's going to be a big announcement, a very big announcement really, because there's a few big things that we're going to be changing, and we're going to be making some big moves in boxing, man. So can't take too much. Give me about a couple of days. Hopefully we should announce something. If I'm going to fight, it's going to be around end of March. It's going to be March time. And the potential next opponent will be, I don't know, I'm looking at a few names at the moment. It'd be like a tune-up fight, but it'll be someone like who we can, get back in the ring with and get that ring rust off. And because it's been over a year I've not fought because of the hand injury, but I'm good to go now.
So Amir Khan, at the point of recording that, is a big tease. Big announcement, big changes to his team. Steve, you're his mate, aren't you? What's going on?
I haven't spoke since I bumped into him at Jamie Moore's gym before he vanished in the jungle. You know what? With Amir, people were talking about him, but since he went in that jungle, everyone's talking about. Everyone wants to know when he's come back. You'd think it was someone who's 40, 48 and 0 with 5 world titles, who hasn't boxed for 2 years, making a comeback. And it's good that Amir's getting attention. You know me, I won't have a word against him.
Yeah.
The rumours are in overdrive about Amir Khan. He's going to fight on the anti-Joshua card. He's done a free fight deal with Matchroom. He's going to fight in America. Today, the name I heard for the comeback was Adrian Broner, which will be a mad fight. Now, I have no idea who he's going with. There's a lot of talk he could be going with Eddie Hearn and Matchroom Boxing. That's what some people seem to think. Could he fight on the Joshua pay-per-view bill? Hey, look, you never say never, but that takes a big chunk of money out of the pay-per-view money, revenue that goes to Matchroom, Joshua and Joseph Parker. So I'd be surprised if he was on that bill. But it wouldn't surprise me whoever he signed with. Nothing would surprise me. But the latest rumour as we speak, as this podcast goes out, is that Adrian Broner is the likely comeback opponent. Will he be the comeback opponent? I don't know. But the rumours of Amir are coming up by the day. And it's quite good, because the more rumours there are about Amir, the more interesting, the more bigger the announcement's coming. It's a lot bigger now than what it was before he went in the I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of it. I mean, to me, perhaps the logical thing would be to stay with ITV, go ITV pay-per-view. Because their viewers have loved him in the jungle.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's an audience that knows him. If they see him on adverts on ITV, they go, "Oh, Lewis."
And that's what pay-per-view's all about. I mean, the things, they've had some great fights on ITV since they come back into boxing. But the thing is, some of the pay-per-view fights they've had, people haven't known the characters, the fighters. Sure. They haven't done build-up shows. They haven't had them appear on Ant and Dec on a Saturday night to bring them out, so that wider audience, that casual audience, gets to know them. Amir, they know, so they've got a ready-made star for their pay-per-view brand.
And he's doing the rounds. I mean, he was on Loose Women very recently. Him and his wife. Just yesterday they were on Good Morning Britain as well. These are ITV shows. He's doing his rounds there. So that's my hunch. My other hunch is a bit of MTV.
Yeah, you said that to me last week. It goes against the grain, and of course, is Indian Boxing Super League. I don't know a lot about.
Thing.
Yeah,
it's like his MMA company that he's the head of, and he's sold some of it to MTV, so it's going to be aired on MTV. Just wonder if there's some sort of tie.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what sort of revenue there is in MTV these days to generate enough money to satisfy Amir Khan. But hey, look, the more rumours there are, the happier he's going to be. And I tell you what. You put him against Broner, ITV pay-per-view. Now, they might be fighters that have seen their best days, you could say. You know, it's going to be hard for them. You don't imagine...
You can't tell them that, by the way.
No, you don't. I mean, I would love Amir Khan to rediscover the form that beat Marcos Medina. Still one of the greatest performances by a British boxer in Las Vegas, and I don't care what anybody says.
One of my favourite ever fights, that.
There was times when Broner beat Antonio DeMarco at lightweight, I thought then, because DeMarco was, you could make a case of Marco.
He beat Linares, of course, Antonio DeMarco.
Being the best lightweight in the world at the time. That was a hell of a win. Now, I'm not saying those two are going to recapture those days, but those two going at it on a press tour would generate TV interest.
Absolutely. So, we mentioned there Antonio DeMarco was he beat Jorge Linares. Now Linares has come on leaps and bounds since that. He's become one of the best pound for pound fighters in the world. Some news emerged earlier this week in that the WBC have ordered for Jorge Linares and Mikey Garcia to fight after their next fights. Steve, what a fight that would be. How excited are you? Will it happen?
At what weight do they want it to happen?
I think it's a 135.
135, because isn't Garcia stepping up to
he's
140?
He's fighting Lipinets for the IBF super lightweight title.
Hey, look, I'm sure, certainly, I can't speak from Garcia's side, but I'm sure Golden Boy would be more than keen on that fight for Jorge Linares. Because as great as Linares is, they've had to send him abroad to fight Anthony Crolla twice. He's had to go, do the rounds to get his recognition. He's got his fight on BoxNation against
Gester
on the 27th. That's going to be fascinating on a Golden Boy show. I think it's in LA, is it?
Yeah. What's his name? Lucas Matisse.
Lucas Matisse's back on the bill, making his comebacks. He hasn't been seen for a while. The WBC, have put their chest out and say, we're demanding this. Whether it happens is another thing. Linares, I'm sure, will say, I'll have the fight. You got to fight me at 135. The ball is going to be very much in Mikey Garcia's court. I think he's not going to knock it there, but he's going to see what's out there for him at 140, I think, before he goes and has that fight. It's a great fight. It's a great fight.
It's a sensational fight, and I hope we see it. As you mentioned there, Steve, we have got Jorge Linares back in action, 27th of January, live on BoxNation. He fights against Mahito Gester, and on the same card, Lucas Matisse, who was a monster at 140 pounds. He never won a world title there, did he? But he was close.
He was one of the most. You go back 3 years, he was mostly one of the most feared punchers at the game. He was one of the, shall we say, earlier BoxNation overnight superstars we got Matisse coming up on the channel, and people will be want to see this Argentinian wrecking machine. And then Danny Garcia sort of took it away from him, and Garcia was brilliant and one of the great performances of the last few years. And it's a shame Garcia's not gone and really cashed in on that career after that win, because he was brilliant that night, and he hasn't recaptured the form of that evening.
Yeah, he kind of for Matisse, some of the air was let out of the tyres, but he's 35 now, and he does seem to be on a bit of a comeback trail. He's knocking people out again, and he's back on the channel, and he fights for the WBA World Welterweight title. He's gone up a division, so that's a show coming up later this month that we are very excited about. Now, Steve, are you ready for your first rant of 2018? Tell me you're ready.
You know what? It always seems to be the British Boxing Board of Control. And on the whole, I think they do a good job. But I'm just reading somewhere on Twitter yesterday, Peter McDonough.
Hold on, Steve. Let me just stop you right there. Because before you start this rant, I've got to ask you. I've got to say, what you talking about, Lillis? Now you can talk about your rant.
Yeah, you know what? It says, I said, it's always seem to pick on the poor border control. On the whole, don't do a bad job at all, considering what they have to, what goes on in boxing. But I find it a bit bizarre. They've given Peter McDonough an 8-month ban for his sort of weigh-in fracas with Shane Singleton.
What happened there exactly,
Well,
for those who haven't seen
There
it?
was a hell of a lot of needle in the build-up to the fight. The press conference was nasty. A couple of the heavyweights who were fighting on the bill, fighting each other, I think, had to get involved and pull them apart. And then at the weigh-in, a lot was said, and it seemed that Peter went for it for Shane. Shane retaliated. Peter backed off, I think, if I can recall. But Peter was quite animated at the weigh-in, and he's got an 8-month ban from the border control for that, which, okay, his behaviour wasn't ideal, nor was Singleton on at the weigh-in or the build-up, and certainly reprimanded. But when you think Louis Adolphe only got a reprimand and a fine for his cheap shot against Nathan McIntosh, didn't really show any remorse afterwards, and he got off a lot lightly for something that was, to me, was a lot more serious.
Did Peter McDonough do anything worse than throwing a table at a press conference over
No,
someone's
he's
head?
thrown punches, and he's thrown a punch at the weigh-in, which we see often, and they've really more than slapped his wrist. I mean, we're not talking a young pro here. We're talking someone who's in their 40s. I think he's 40 now, Peter. Between he's certainly late 30s, early 40s, and it doesn't do him any good 8 months out the ring at this stage of his career, because he's got less years left than he hasn't got too many years left in the game, and he's on a winning streak. And you know what? He's paid his dues, gone around fighting in the away corner. He'll never have it that he was a journeyman, but a lot of the time he was being brought in not to win fights, and it certainly seems a harsh punishment on him.
Anything else you want to add to your it's not necessarily a rant every week, but what you talking about later segment?
This isn't a rant, just to say quite sorry to hear the passing of Wayne Ellis. He was a Cardiff middleweight, late 80s. I think he turned professional with Frank Warren initially in the late 80s, and a lot was expected of him, and I'll be honest, he should have done a lot better. Barry Jones, our colleague, knew him really well, and I spoke to Barry, and he said anyone who remembers watching Wayne box will know how skillful he was, how he should have gone so much further in his career. I'll never forget watching him knock out Neville Brown in the ABAs, and the injustice of him not being selected for the Olympics. What happened there was Neville Brown was the golden boy. Wayne beat him in the amateurs before the Olympics, and Richie Woodall went and got the selection ahead of Wayne, which was quite controversial at the time, but in the end it was proven to be not a bad decision, because Richie went and medalled at the Olympics, so it wasn't a bad decision at all. But you know what, he beat Johnny Melfa, beat Paul Silky Jones before Paul briefly became a WBO light middleweight champion, or super welterweight as they call it now, and he lost. He was in quite a high profile fight with Steve Collins, where he come off second best, but a good fighter, and one of those maybe should have done better. I think the thing is, he was only really a light middleweight, but he was boxing at middleweight, and I think Barry was saying to me, I think he liked his food a little bit too much.
Well, our thoughts are with his family, the family of Wayne Ellis, who sadly passed away. Well, we have some dates and times that you need to punch into your calendar over the next week. We've got a new show on BoxNation called In Conversation With. So Thursday at 7 o'clock, BoxNation are in conversation with Kerry Kays, who's Ricky Hatton's former cornerman. Have you seen this, Steve? It's been on a couple of times, but Thursday 7's a good time for everyone to catch it.
I missed the premiere of it the other night. I'm going to watch it this week. Our man in the north with me, John Parry, and Cookie, our cameraman, went and made that just before Christmas. Kerry was the main man, not just in the corner, man. His main job was Ricky's dietitian, getting him down to weight. And Kerry is one of them. When it comes to nutrition and diet for sportsmen, there are few people in the country better qualified, if any, than Kerry Kays. Absolute genius at his job. He's quieting down a lot more now. He still pops up in the odd corner, and he'll always help someone out if they call him. But he's not as busy as what he was, and the job he did with Ricky Hatton is often understated.
And that's a story that I'm sure he is telling in conversation with Kerry Kays. Thursday, 7 o'clock. Friday, 7 o'clock. He's back. Guess who's back? Steve Bunce is back. Bunce's Boxing Hour, full of jokes, full of laughs, full of boxing, full of shouting. Everything you love about Steve Bunce will be Friday, 7 o'clock. He's joined by Barry Jones. Steve, are you there?
No, I'm not there. I'm a sub for that programme. When Barry's not about, I'm called in. But I think there could be a couple press conferences later on this week where I'll be floating about that. And you might not see my lovely face on camera, but you'll hear my dulcet tones. I do think Jack Cattrall might be one of the guests this week. I know Pazza in Manchester and Cookie are planning to go and see him at his gym tomorrow.
That is exciting. Big fan of Jack.
So we could get Jack talking about a rivalry with Terry Flanagan that, as you would say, is going to marinate this year, particularly if Terry beats Mo Hooker when they fight, most probably late March, April time.
It does feel like a fight that's going to come, both, obviously very highly ranked with the WBO. Steve, you mentioned there, and it almost broke my heart hearing that, how you are a sub on Bunce's Boxing Hour and a sub on that sofa. Well, let me tell you right now, Barry is a sub for this show, and you are my number one.
I'll take that.
You should. Saturday, 8 o'clock, a fight to remember. Billy Joe Saunders versus Chris Eubank Jr. Now, this A Fight to Remember series largely involves the main protagonists involved with a fight or a show sat on a sofa and looking back on the event. So this truly is one to remember. You remember the Saunders versus Eubank fight, don't you, Steve?
Great night, great fight. Never forget watching it from ringside. I was in the first or second row, surrounded by the chaos around the Eubank that night, which was just unbelievable. That corner, I think, as I'm sure you would echo what I say. The win looks better with every win that Eubank has, and you look at how Saunders beat him. You'd still fancy him against Eubank. I think he won the fight. And remember, Chisora against Fury was the fight after, and Bunce and myself had to get back to the studio across London, and we listened to it on a taxi driver's radio, or wireless as I still call it. So we missed that. I missed that one.
Well, Saunders versus Eubank, a fight to remember, Saturday, 8 o'clock. You see, we haven't got a live show this week, but that doesn't mean we just switch the channel off. We are a 24/7 boxing channel. And Sunday, 10 a.m, that's when it all kicks off. A marathon of greatest boxing classics. The last show is at 10 p.m. that night, so it literally is like 6 or 7, maybe even 8 shows back to back. Some of the fighters you'll see are Roberto Duran, Bernard Hopkins, James Bone Crusher Smith, and there's so many more. Steve, do you ever just sit down and watch greatest boxing classics?
Sometimes on a Sunday I'll switch it on the afternoon when can't be bored watching the football. And you mentioned one name there, James Bone Crusher Smith. I often wonder where he'd be in today's heavyweights. I'll never forget, I was at Wembley on that infamous, shall we say, Sunday night, I think it was, for Mickey Duff, when he beat Frank Bruno. I think the same Bill Buster Drayton upset Mark Caleb, but Bone Crusher Smith stopping Bruno in that 10th round and blowing the initial world title chance to bits for a while was one of the next morning it was back page news everywhere. Big Frank had been beaten.
I can imagine. Well, Big Frank got there in the end, of course.
He did.
So, how to subscribe to BoxNation? I can hear you all saying that. You're like, all these shows, they sound great, Dev, but how can I get the channel on my TV? Well, it could not be easier. Go to BoxNation.com. There's a few instructions on there. There's a few buttons to click. Click them. Yeah? You'll find yourself with BoxNation on your TV very, very quickly. If you adore us, leave us a review on iTunes. If you abhor us, leave us a review on iTunes. It's all going to help. And remember to tweet us any comments at BoxNation TV, at Steve Lillis, and at Sani Dev. Steve, it's been great being back. How'd you find it all?
Loved it, Dev. Had a nice break over Christmas and back chatting boxing with you. Life couldn't get any better, and look forward to seeing you in the same seat next week.
Life indeed could not get better. We have been the BoxNation podcast. We will be back next week, and you have just got to keep on listening. Thanks for joining us.